Everything is influenced by how high you're vibrating. From what your life looks like, how good you feel day to day, the opportunities that are open to you, even down to how much abundance you get to experience. So then how do you raise your vibration? Or said differently, your frequency resonance? What does it mean to calibrate your frequency? And why does that have so much positive impact and catalyze so much transformation? In this episode, we discuss what it means to calibrate your frequency resonance and also how to optimize it so you can experience more of the brilliance of life. And after the discussion, we get to the most important part. The group frequency calibration associated with this episode is where the frequency work happens and where change actually occurs. So be sure to listen to that. Without releasing distortion patterns targeted by the GFC, the change you want will be more difficult to attain because you haven't addressed the root of the issue. If you like this episode, please help us out by hitting the like button. And if you want to make sure you don't miss our regular new content, click the subscribe button too. My name is Karen Cheong, and today in Mastering Your World Through Frequencies, we're discussing frequency calibration, the key to unlocking your limitless potential.
So we have these two particular names that I've always found really curious for the things that you offer. One is group frequency calibration, and the other one is an individual frequency calibration. And when you use the word calibration, in my mind, I'm like, is it a mechanic tapping on the engine? What do you mean by calibration?
Yeah, to me, we're like a symphony. Okay? This beautiful, multiple notes. Okay? And some of the notes are heavier and disharmonious, and those are like our distortion patterns. So as you release your distortion patterns, the symphony becomes clearer, more melodious, more in harmony with itself. And so when I say frequency calibration, it's that you're releasing these patterns, these heavier notes, and you come more into this coherence, into this beautiful melody, which is a clearer expression of you.
Okay, so if I try to interpret that the way I think I'm hearing it, so I have a whole bag full of frequencies that can put together, can create a beautiful piece of symphony and harmony and you know, but because the distortion patterns, some of them are flat and they should be sharp. Okay, so when I tune them, or do I just get rid of them, then this piece of bundle of notes or symphony, the analogy that we're using, becomes more harmonious and melodic.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. So when you're working with this in the IFC, in the individual frequency calibration, and the group frequency calibration, what part of it is it that you're working on for us as a group? Because you're working at the frequency calibration, you are doing something, right?
Yes.
That helps us shift something.
Yeah.
So what is it that you're doing?
Oh, I understand what you're asking now. Sure. So really what I'm doing is I'm holding a certain frequency resonance.
Right.
Okay? So I myself hold a certain level of vibration.
Right.
I'm able to have the mastermind, and you guys do it yourselves too. That's what happens when the mastermind comes into coherence. You start to entrain to my vibrational level because you can. You just aren't necessarily in a situation in your everyday life where you're doing that. And it's not always present. So when we're working in a GFC or even one-to-one in an IFC, you start to entrain to my frequency resonance, onto my vibrational level. And then with my abilities, because you're moving up in your vibration level that you may not necessarily be able to hold or maintain for yourself for a long period of time, but you can in that moment because I'm there holding it for you, you're moving up. And as you do that, because you have momentum and because I work at the frequency level, we can then release more and more distortion of you, which allows you to rise up even more in terms of your vibration level.
Right. And so when you say entrain, can we unpack that a little bit? I mean, am I consciously aware that when you're holding this frequency resonance, that I'm entraining to this? Or is this just something that we're defaulting to because we naturally want to be a better version of ourselves?
It's that. So humans are programmed to move towards something of a higher vibrational order. You'll just do it naturally. It's kind of like there's a story actually of the Dalai Lama, who is of a high vibrational order, and he was somewhere in South America, and this is in the 80s, or early 90s, something like this. And Latin America is generally very Catholic, so it's not like there's a huge Buddhist community, typically speaking, in these countries. So he was there touring and speaking and that type of thing. And in the hotel, one of the hotels that he was staying at, the staff didn't know who he was, right? He's just like some monk dressed up in his robes, and obviously with an entourage. And so the cleaning people, he would walk, the first day he arrived, he was there, and there were people cleaning and whatnot. And then the next day when he appeared out of his room, like half the staff showed up, right? They weren't really there for anything other than to watch him. And then by the second day, the entire staff had showed up just to watch him walk by, not because they knew who he was, but because when they were in his presence, at that vibrational level, they felt better. They were putting themselves in physical proximity to him to raise their own vibrational level. They didn't know why they were doing that. They just did it because it felt good to them. We as humans want to entrain to a higher frequency resonance. It feels good to us.
Because it feels better.
Yeah, it feels better. And we don't like the heaviness. Like naturally, you don't like heaviness. You don't like yucky. You don't like things that slow you down. You don't like feeling bad. So when you are in training, which means moving up towards that higher frequency resonance, it feels good to you. So you want to.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we're in a group frequency calibration or an individual frequency calibration, and you're holding the space, is that what's happening? You're holding this resonance, this frequency resonance in a space for us to rise up to?
Yeah.
And then I'm imagining, like when they put the note to the glass, that when we move up to this higher resonating frequency, that the distortion patterns get a little bit like
wobbly.
And just come off.
Exactly. So it's like, the distortion patterns are of a heavier resonance.
Right.
They're denser. Okay. And therefore, when you start to move to a higher frequency resonance, they can't exist in the same level. They can't exist in the same space. Let's put it that way. And the space is you.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you start to vibrate higher, then the heavier things drop off. It's kind of like a dog shaking. Like if they've been rolling in the mud and they come in and you really don't want them to do this, but then they shake, so all the mud goes flying because they're trying to clear themselves of the mud. They don't like it. It feels yucky to them, right? It's not clean. So you're doing the same thing, except you're literally shaking, except you're vibrating, right? At the level of consciousness, and you're vibrating faster and faster and faster. And the distortion, which is heavy, like the mud on the dog, falls away from you.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And so that's when we're being recalibrated, basically.
Exactly. And what happens is, this is a very important piece. Why I talk about confirming the removal so much is because it allows you to empower yourself to keep moving up in terms of your vibrational level. Because what you're doing by confirming the removal is you're recognizing consciously, okay, in yourself, oh, those were the distortion patterns I have. I don't have them anymore because you are co-creating. So you're like, that density is no longer mine. So I choose to release them in this moment, however they show up for you. And we have a whole, I think it's episode 101, the most powerful tool in your toolkit, which is all about confirming the removal. So if you don't know what that means, go watch that. But confirming the removal is really important so the mud doesn't come back and stick to you.
Yeah, or that you go back and play the same note at the same, B flat, whatever it was, you've learned a new way of playing it.
Yes, right? Exactly. Or you move up an octave, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the B flat, even though it's still there in the next octave up, it's not so screechy. It's not like, oh God, that's so terrible. You know what I mean? It doesn't have the same impact in your life in terms of showing up in the same intensity or in the same negative format. So it might show up, but much lighter. So for example, let's just imagine that you have a lot of challenge with like scarcity, right? Like money is a really big problem for you. Okay, so when you first start releasing your distortion patterns around scarcity, it can be really hard because for some people it's really entrenched and there's a lot of lineage patterns there and there's a lot of shame and there's a lot of guilt and there's a lot of stuff to release. So here you are experiencing scarcity and all that stuff around it and you're starting to release it. You're like, oh, okay, I cleared a lot of stuff around that. So that means that instead, so the next time, so let's just say you've moved up, okay, in your resonance. So instead of feeling like you're not allowed to buy something nice for yourself, because you know, in that first level, it's just like you don't even have the money. You can't even think about having the money. It's just like everything, there's not enough money for anything, okay, because you're in that level of scarcity. Okay, let's say you clear that layer. You've now moved up to the next layer. It's like, okay, I can I can actually afford to buy something, and I actually will allow myself to experience this little treat, whether it's just like a bunch of flowers or a treat that I wouldn't be able to normally buy at a grocery store, but I'm going to allow myself to have it, and I'm really going to enjoy it, for example. And then you clear more. And the next time you have that, for example, it's like, okay, well, not only am I clearer of scarcity, so now I have more abundance, like I'm actually feeling more abundant, but I start to feel more joyful. And now I want to share my abundance with other people. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like a different experience. It's the same clearing of the same pattern, but as you clear more and more, your life experience and how you feel about that experience shifts.
Yeah, I'm imagining, sticking with the kind of same analogy, that you flick over the page on the music book and you've got a whole pile of other new notes that you have access to and can play.
Yes.
Maybe you upgrade your guitar or upgrade your piano.
Yeah.
And then you're producing this lighter, more joyful piece of music, equally melodic and, I'm imagining that. Is that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. And when your vibrational resonance rises, just as you said, the more notes or more not only the notes, but how those notes flow together can change, because you now start to access different opportunities.
Yeah.
Different people come into your life. So now, for example, your piece of music might include the bassoon when it didn't before. And the bassoon adds this beautiful line in your symphony that wasn't there before, for example.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So next time I have my individual frequency calibration, what would be good for me to be aware of is a feeling for that frequency resonance that allows me to actually get rid of, not to surrender everything, my power to you, but to actually go, wait, where's she going with this? Okay, let me feel it. Oh, that's what's happening. Let me help get rid of that.
Yeah, and I think for some people when they've started, it's harder for them to do that because you just feel like, oh my God, I've got so much distortion. I can't. All I feel is a distortion.
Yeah.
So what you're describing, a lot of people can start to do when they have cleared enough. Does that make sense? That they start to, because it sounds strange, like how do you become aware of your distortion? You just sort of become aware that it's there, or you start to recognize when it's there.
When you feel better, when you felt bad, right?
Exactly.
It's that jump.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wait, how am I feeling good now? And I didn't 5 minutes ago. Whoa, what?
Yeah, exactly. So in that, then you have more experience and you kind of know what it is. At least when I began, I was just like, there's so much crap. I just know I feel better, but I don't know why exactly.
Right. So just surrender to that.
Surrender to that. Yeah. And to be aware, and I would say this was your idea actually, it's to, before you have an IFC, to be aware of your body, what questions you have, how you feel. And then notice after the IFC, how you feel about that same thing. And right after the IFC, and then like a week later, because things will have shifted. And what you confirm remove will have shifted. Things will have come up for you to confirm remove, all that sort of stuff. So that way you can sort of start to, because life will show you where you have the distortion and where you're releasing it. Yeah. And so that's really helpful. And for those of you who, some of you are very powerful feelers, like yourself, you're very powerful feelers, so you can feel it in your field. And other people, you're like, I don't feel anything. Perfect. Watch your life.
Yes. Okay. So
watch
look
your life.
For the signals.
Yeah. In your life, or watch your physical body.
Yeah.
Some people don't feel very much. They feel like, so some people, when they have an IFC, you'll fall asleep or get sleepy, or not even necessarily an IFC, but like, because typically when it's one-on-one, people don't fall asleep. But in a group frequency calibration, people will fall asleep. And I always say, let yourself fall asleep because your higher self is kicking your conscious mind like into sleep so you can release more. And some people don't even have detox. They'll fall asleep, they'll wake up, and they're like, sorted, next set of distortions, right? Now that is not most people's experience.
I've got a friend that does that.
Yeah, and it's so easy for them. And for other people, they're like, how is that so easy for you? They're like, yeah, I just sleep a lot afterwards and that's how I detox. And other people are like, I hate you. Because it's harder for them. But sometimes if you fall asleep, it's okay. Let yourself fall asleep because it's happening beyond the level of your mind. And that's okay. You don't have to be actively participating. But if you're a feeler, and you can feel it happening, like you are very sensitive to it, then if you're a feeler, you'll get to the point in your resonance. It's always really fun for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm not just helping you release a distortion, you start to help yourself. And for me, when that happens, it's a very exciting moment because it means the person receiving the work is starting to co-create with me. And they're starting to do, you know what I mean? It's like now this dance between the two of us, and it's not just your higher self. It's like your human embodiment is now participating,
Oh, so this is why you're your other programs, like your LPM, why, if you come together as a group, because if it's just me and you, all right, and we can do that together, what happens if you have 9 of you doing that together?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it's really powerful. So when you have a group like the Limitless Potential Mastermind, where it's a lot of people, like you said, 9 who have been doing frequency work, are committed to being self-aware, are very active in terms of their own self-empowerment and releasing their distortion patterns and raising their resonance. When you have 9 together, it's like rocket fuel, because now all of a sudden everyone's accountable, everyone's contributing, everyone and it's not like people in the group are sitting there being like, okay, I need to help Karen do this. It's not about that, right? It's not that. It's more like, all right, there's the pattern, I'm going to release it, right? And so what happens is your resonance rises. When your resonance rises, the rest of the group's resonance rises. When that group resonance rises, it propels the individual. And it's happening over and over and over again through all the individuals, and it becomes extremely fast.
Wow.
So it's amazing when you have something like the Limitless Potential Mastermind, or even Living Your Brilliance, or a retreat, or whatever it is, because when you come together in that mastermind with people who are committed to their own empowerment and their personal growth and their own ascension, and are willing to do the work to do it, it can be extraordinary what we can create together for ourselves individually, and also for the group and for the collective. It's an amazing thing to witness.
I'll bet it is.
Yeah.
It's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally exciting.
The power of the group, right?
Yeah.
The collective.
Totally. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I needed that explanation of the calibration. It was one of them things that you're like, what does she mean?
Thank you. So if you like this episode, please click the heart button and leave a comment and let me know what group frequency calibration you'd like me to cover next. We're about to start the group frequency calibration, or GFC, where we actually do the frequency work and where change is catalyzed. To get to the GFC, click on the square that'll appear to the right, or the link in the description below. It's time to bring in a new experience, a new consciousness, and a new world. Let's rise together.